Radio Freccia. Libera come noi.
Hello Rockers! In esclusiva italiana per voi su Radio Freccia trovate questa intervista a Matt Dom dei Muse, dove raccontano tutti i segreti e il retroscena del loro ultimo album Simulation Theory. Enjoy!
Historically, we've always had like this kind of weird, probably slightly irrational thing of just not wanting to ever repeat ourselves. So I think we've always approached the first few albums like that. We've got to do something different. We did that last time. It has to be recorded different, sound different.
And we've ended up in this kind of, there's this vague pattern I see, which is that it's not clear cut, but we tend to do an album where we sort of go more towards like the three of us playing like rock based, like guitar, bass and drums, and that becomes a priority. And then we seem to want to do an album where we sort of reinvent the wheel and sort of try loads of different production techniques. And then we sort of go, oh, let's go back to doing more sort of straight rock again. And then we go, no, let's go and reinvent it. And I feel like we've done that for the last 4 albums anyway. I'd say that Resistance was kind of, I mean, it doesn't seem it now. At the time, Black Hole seemed like a kind of probably a bit of a reinvention, and Resistance was going back to sort of more rock. That's what it seemed like at the time. It probably doesn't sound it now, but that's what our intention was. And then Second Law was definitely like, let's just try it, go crazy, just try anything goes. Do you know what I mean? And then we were like, oh no, let's go back to rock again, drones. And then now this album is probably more the kind of not experimental, but the more like broadening our horizons of sound, basically. And then so that probably means the album after this is going to be back to rock again. I need something Something Human was probably one of the more difficult, even though it was a simpler tune, it's one of the most difficult songs for us to record for the following reason, I guess. It was the first song I actually wrote after finishing the Drones tour, almost as that tour finished, wrote it, and it's a very sort of coming back from tour type feeling, very obvious lyrics about what it feels like to be away from home for a long time, and then we recorded a version of it pretty much straight away back then, and it was probably more stripped down. In fact, on the deluxe version of the album, there's an acoustic version of it, and that's kind of the version we recorded first, pretty much. And then what happened was we were thinking about what direction to go on the album, and that was around the time, it was after that the sort of simulation theory type of ideas started coming, and we had this song called Dig Down, which was a kind of gospel tune with a gospel choir, piano, very stripped down acoustic. But
when you started it?
Yeah, when we started it, yeah. But when we sort of decided to record it, we wanted to go down this direction of making it much more synthetic, more synthesized, and that was where we kind of felt like we got the direction for the album. Writing a song a certain way, but producing it very differently, basically. And that kind of pretty much stayed with us the album. And then sort of as the album progressed, Something Human didn't really sort of fit in as well, as we went down the line, because it felt too stripped down. And so the challenge with that song was really trying to make it fit in with this kind of, bringing all these synths and additional programmed layers into the song, and that song ended up taking overall probably like over a year to actually finish. Yeah. That song is definitely a mixture of kind of dance, electro dance, I guess you'd call it. I mean, again, a bit of 80s maybe. With a kind of a haunting kind of dark, vocally ghostly scenario. So trying to get those two things to go together was really the interesting sort of dynamic of that track. It was I don't know what you'd call that really. It's kind of a haunting disco type sound, isn't it, or something? Yeah.
I mean, I really love that there's the dark side, because there is something slightly reminiscent of the past, but not anything that we've kind of ripped off from ourselves in the past. It's something
we're allowed to rip off ourselves, I think.
Well, I suppose we are, but I don't think it was like consciously done. But it's like it's something about the chordal progression, the vocal melody, the kind of style of singing that Matt's singing in is somehow kind of gives me kind of feelings of maybe things that we've done in the past, but it also feels completely like up to date and new, and
yes,
this like driving disco track. So that's a favourite of mine. That one.
We did.
So yeah, very much so. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we kind of completed every single song before we moved on, but we certainly got them to a stage where they had their own kind of character and face, as we called it. And that was one of the intentions as well. And I think, I feel like we've approached albums similar to that in the past, maybe, where every song really has its own thing. But certainly with this album, we wanted to make sure they really sound very different as well, like production-wise, sonically and stuff like that. So Yeah, you know, but I think the last album was definitely a bit more like performance-led, straight ahead. So this one, I think we wanted to definitely do something very different to that, and create a different, you know, like each song has its own world.
You know what, I would actually go as far as to say this song was partly influenced by being in this Beatles covers band that I joined. You know, Dom played with us briefly. We managed to play with Paul McCartney for a couple of tracks as well. So we were doing like, we had this band with a bunch of mates where we were playing like just Beatles covers tunes, and I was learning the bass lines, and I wanted to basically study Paul McCartney's bass lines. I never really studied Beatles at all, really, you know, in terms of their songwriting, but I started delving into it, and I wanted to take on the bass role. And, you know, Paul McCartney's bass lines were just really, really fantastic, you know. So around that time that I was learning that, I started picking up the guitar and like just playing loads of riffs and learning sort of, you know, slightly bluesy, slightly cool riffs, and basically it was a combination of those three riffs, you know. It was a bam, 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 bam in the verse, and then the do 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 do, and then the do 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 in the chorus. It was just three riffs, and I was just trying to find ways to get them to merge together in one song, basically. Yeah. I think it's pretty general. I think all of us feel feelings of pressure at certain points, you know. You know, I'm trying to work out. I haven't really thought about exactly a specific moment that made that song. It's just that feeling of when, I don't know. There's moments when you feel like, I guess, I don't know, like pressure to, you know, working on the album or working on deadlines, working on like, you know, sometimes being on tour. I don't know. Sometimes there's personal things that are going on, you know, I don't know, it's just like anything that makes you feel like you're under a lot of pressure from other people to get something done, and it like starts to do your head in, you know what I mean? I think it's pretty sort of, you know, relatable to, you know, any situation that can be applied to, really. So for me, like, I can think of various things in my life that I can apply that to. It doesn't really stand out as being one of them in particular. It's just a general feeling of when you've had that moment of like, oh my God, I'm being pushed here, and like, you know, I don't know if I can deliver, you know, but I'm gonna, you know.
I think you've got to, you know, just, you know, life's too short to not do things. You know, you've got to just do them, really. So I think over the course of being in this band, and you know, the things that we've probably done and attempted to go for and achieve, you know, we've had to probably face out loads of times where it's like, oh my God, are we going to really pull this off, whatever it is that we're doing? And it's like, you know, sod it, we've got to just do it. So whether it be like, you know, some huge gig we're just about to do, or even trying to complete an album, you know, you have to. We've faced that many times where it's like you've got to make it happen because life's too short to not.
Radio Freccia, libera come noi.